I'm Sabrina, as I was introduced. I work right now with Kolonial as a talent acquisition partner and tech recruiter. At the same time, as mentioned, I was previously in London setting up the function at Harnham within data and analytics in the Nordics, together with a couple of other colleagues that people might have been introduced to as well. But I'm here today to share some insights from working as a recruiter in the field. And I am very much a context person, so I want to give you some context to what this sentence actually means. And insight in this presentation will be about how processes often are built up and what companies tend to look for and how you can prepare for this. Working as a recruiter, I guess I am someone who somewhat can validate the insight shared. I think I have probably seen a few thousand CVs, interviewed many hundreds, also across, I don't know, 20, 30 companies. So I think I've seen the inside of many businesses, but I think something that's worth mentioning here as well is the field, because many companies or recruiters tend to work within kind of oil and gas industries or certain retail. But what we were always focusing was kind of people within tech and analytics looking for jobs in that space within any company that was hiring at the time, because it has matured over the years. But I want to start with some insights. And basics is basically how processes typically are designed, because many people have entered interviews and you feel like you're walking into quite a general conversation, and that is often correct. People tend to have general interviews to get to know multiple sides of you as the candidates, but also perhaps introduce themselves as a company to see whether you mutually maybe want to place a bet to get to know each other further. And then you typically have a kind of a discipline or skills interview that is kind of more in depth in regards to the type of hard skills and soft skills that are required to do the actual job. And then some companies call them manager interviews, some companies call them culture-oriented interviews or team interviews, but there tend to be somewhere in a process that is more about kind of personal fit, culture fit, and who you are in a dynamic of multiple people. Some companies do testing in terms of logical reasoning testing, but we're not really going to focus on that today. But I want to give you some insight to what companies typically assess and look for when they are meeting people in processes. And from my experience, you can kind of categorize them into these areas. People look for motivation, they look for skills, they tend to look for a certain type of person, and it's quite important that they fit our culture. And I often get asked this question by candidates or people internally who want to start interviewing, or anybody really who wants to talk about career advice. What is good motivation? And it's a really good question. And it will vary, but I'll give you some examples of motivation. I think the two basic ones that everyone tends to look for is motivation for the company and motivation for the role. And motivation for the company, I think, is could be anything from kind of what they are trying to achieve in their mission and vision statements, to the type of products that they're developing, to the type of technologies that they're working with. It could be multiple things, but companies tend to look for people who want to work with what they're trying to achieve. And then the role, of course, is very important. Why do you want to be a data scientist, or why do you want to be a data analyst? And this is what people tend to focus quite a lot on, actually. And I'll encourage to look kind of beyond this motivation. I have included kind of 3 examples from Kolonial. We actually care a lot about that people are motivated by making an impact, by helping people and building a great team. We're scaling a lot, so it's important that we have people who are actually energized by building a community and environment internally that is healthy and scalable, and something that you can enjoy working in long term. The other one is often kind of, how do I know if I have the skills? And it also varies from company to company and role to role, but we tend to have 2 facets to skills in many ways. You have hard skills We've had many great examples from the other speakers today on what that could be, but could be anything from kind of code to actually being able to read and write algorithms, working with neural networks, data structures, statistics, basically the skills that in many ways have been described today. But we also have kind of the softer skills that really differentiate some candidates from others. They also have the ability to work with their hard skills in processes that are often anchored in real user insights. They're able to make strong decisions in regards to what to include or exclude or prioritize, and they are able to kind of iterate and learn on the go. In terms of working with stakeholders, that is always going to be important. AI is a field for the tech people, and you have to often work with a lot of non-tech people. So your ability to kind of simplify and clarify complexity in a very complex landscape will often also be kind of beneficial in your role as a data scientist or similar. And also kind of see the bigger picture, I think it's often underestimated because the actual data or the machine learning algorithm that is written is only part of a bigger puzzle. So how about me as a person? And it kind of gets more complicated, but I think it's something that I've found is kind of common within the tech industry or data science or engineering and or design, actually, for that sake, is that it's a very fast changing industry and a very fast changing environment. So I think people that are kind of highly curious and hungry learners and able to kind of adapt to the changing environments is positive for many companies. Being optimistic because your solutions aren't always going to work. If you can play with others, that's really good. For us as well, an example from Kolonial, help build great teams is actually something that we find very good in this stage of scaling. And most importantly, self-awareness. What do you know, and what could you get help from others where you cannot kind of fill the gap? And all of these are kind of just examples, and there are multiple kind of, I guess, factors that will contribute to shaping why companies lay kind of more importance on some things over the others, and the size of the team could be one reason. Companies that have larger teams and many senior people maybe are often in a position to get someone who are less qualified into their environment and train them to become a team member because they see great potential. But sometimes that's not possible. We hired our first machine learning engineer, and it was really important for us actually that this person could be a bar racer in this area for us. So actually we couldn't consider someone junior. And it's often not just you, but also the companies and their kind of situation that has something to say on what type of profile they're looking for. Maturity is something to mention as well. Some companies are very early stage in their data journeys, and some are more mature. That might play a part on who they look for and what type of skills they're looking for. And you can look at kind of maturity in many ways. Some companies are more renowned and you know they have people, but you can also check on LinkedIn what type of people are working at X company with X title. There are many ways to investigate. But also tech challenges. Something that I experienced a lot working as a consultant and speaking with many people is that they want to work with kind of state-of-the-art technology, and sometimes forgot that you're actually just trying to solve a problem, and we need to have a solution for that problem, and that is not necessarily always state-of-the-art machine learning. So adapting to the kind of tech challenges that companies are working with could be something. And obviously culture has something to play, and it's often harder to kind of prepare for. But I will actually just want to mention a little bit about the field AI as well. And I think actually Julia presented it very well as well. And that's because today is kind of AI edition. I wanted to give a real example of what it takes to make good AI, because for many people that are getting into the field, it's hard to think that it's the people writing the algorithms only that might be doing AI. But a disclaimer is that AI is not made by one person or one role or one title. it's a multidisciplinary field. So an example for today is actually that we at Kolonial, we would like to make a recommendation engine using, for example, natural language processing techniques. And for me, that sounds pretty AI. And you have a data scientist coming up with the recommendation algorithms. Great. But you also have a data engineer making sure that all the data is nicely piped and updated. We do that so that the data scientists can have the data used to train their models. But we also actually have software engineers building the software to display recommendations on the web or on app. And we have a data analyst conducting A/B tests to see whether our new recommendations actually bring any benefits to the company. But we also have a UX designer to decide with others how everything should be displayed for the end user. Say if we're making a recommendation on your grocery list, is it actually valuable or not? And I guess the key point that I want to make is that there are many ways to unlock the AI potential, and I would encourage people not to focus so much on the title, but also on what they enjoy doing and how you can contribute in a multidisciplinary field, because I guess you can even take it as to an extreme that without all of these people wouldn't be at Kolonial if it wasn't for a recruiter. So am I contributing to AI? Maybe, I don't know. But it's something to keep in mind that there are a bigger puzzle into play here. So yeah, just want to wrap up some recommendations, something that you can take away. And I think some of the things are aligned with what's already been shared, but to prepare, you could know what motivates you, why it motivates you, and even possibly what triggered that motivation in the first place. It often tends to be a good indication to why you are passionate about something, which is often nice. I would also encourage to kind of spend some time and sit down and articulate what you know, how you came to learn it, and what you can take from it, and things you maybe would have done differently next time. Just to kind of have a feeling of, actually, we all have some sort of experience and some sort of skills. Like Stephen learned a lot of things from working with kids that he could take into the data science world, and all experience matter as long as you can articulate how it's relevant for the role you're looking for. And I think it's also a good recommendation to try to the best of your abilities to understand and research kind of the bigger picture of the role you're looking for and what the organization is trying to achieve by hiring someone for that role. Because at the end of the day, business matters. And most people that are hiring for their data scientists aren't just hiring someone to have fun with algorithms. They're trying to achieve something with that. And if you don't have the right commercial experience, I think I actually took a note in regards to Stephen's example of portfolio, because I think it's really a good example to show how your willingness to learn, because in a very fast changing technological landscape, even the skills can become quite outdated. So your willingness to learn continuously and explore can get you really far, even if you don't have the right commercial experience. And I think the last point, which has also kind of been mentioned, learn about yourself, because when it comes to personality, you're supposed to be able to bring that into the role one way or the other, and finding out what you kind of value about yourself, but also what you value about others is good to be aware of before starting interviewing as well. So I think as a summary, be prepared, be self-aware, and write your motivation letters, because we, at least I, do read them. So don't underestimate the power of a good motivation letter. And I guess that's it. So yeah, thanks for listening. And I hope you can take something away from my insider black box tips today.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. It was really fun tying it all up in the end, actually. So that, yeah, thank you so much for some insight from inside the black box, as you said. And I feel at least you didn't disprove anything that has been said so far today. So that was also very
No,
Very
I was
good.
actually really happy to see the other presentations before I had this talk, because I was like, yes, we're on the same page. So that's good.
No, thank you so much.